general.
Okay, come, West. I'll start.
We were looking from the how to rightly interpret the scripture and to apply these rules always when we look at the scripture. This book is not a Greek book. This book is an Hebrew which came from the Hebrew-minded people with an Hebrew mindset. So we cannot take the scripture and try to fit into it things which are not. We do not belong to it. And even if we are persuaded that it is so, it might not be so. First of all, it's also to understand that the timing of the scripture is not always our timing. We try to match something into the scripture which the scripture do not say. So it might be or it might not be. So we must really take a distance to approach it. First of all, we must remove all paganism from this scripture. The scripture was written by Jewish people, also with an Hebrew mindset. And the Hebrew mindset is opposite to the Greek mindset. We have learned that we have here the Hebrew mindset, which is action-based, and the Greek mindset, which is what do you call the term? And in the Greek mindset, which is abstract. So we need to understand that these people, when they speak, they have another mindset. Now, if we want to understand Scripture, we must do it according to Scripture plus historical facts. If we ignore the historical facts, we will be led in our own interpretation. So here the context is very interesting, especially in the interpretation of the book of Revelation, which is or which is not an end time scenario. Or maybe it's divided. It's not all an end time scenario. We see in the book of Revelation, already in the first verse, we see the Master Yeshua saying that he will come speedily. Speedily. So this means he will not wait very long in order to happen. This does not mean that the whole book is in the same time frame. But the first question is always to know who is the writer, what does he have in mind, how can I recognize there is signs in it to recognize the time frame. And we can see that there is signs that if we don't ignore, we will have to accept. First of all, Yohanan, or John, in this book never speak of the already past destruction of the temple, which in a Jewish mindset is a major event. I am persuaded that if the temple at this time when Yohanan wrote the book was already destroyed, we will have mention of it in the book of Revelation, but it's not the case. So now, at this time when Yohanan, John, write this book, Jerusalem is under the Roman control. It's under the Roman control. And the destruction of the temple is still to come. What was the destruction of the temple? Was it just a Roman plan, or the plan, or was this Roman intention, or was it Jehovah's intention? The destruction of the temple was mentioned by our Master Yeshua, or the Yehoshua, in Matthew 24. It's already mentioned. Yeshua came as a prophet like Moshe. He was first of all in the first century, before he died on the stake. He was the prophet like Moshe. He came as a prophet. The purpose of the prophet is to turn back the people of Elohim to the Torah. To the Torah. Not to the tradition of man, but to the Torah. In the time of Yeshua, Jerusalem was under the control of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, with their own doctrines, with their own oral law. And this is why it is so important to understand that the purpose of Yeshua was to turn the people of Elohim back to the Torah, not to man's made doctrine, to the simplicity of the Torah. But there was resistance, and there was a reason for that, because Yeshua knew that he will have to pay the price in order to bring back the children of Israel to Elohim, all together. And this happened when he accepted to die on the stake. Then he was the Mashiach. Then he was the Son of Elohim. So we need to understand this context. Destruction of the temple is the result of a rebellion against Elohim. This is. Why? Because the temple was for the people more important than Yeshua. But Yeshua himself said there is somebody greater than the temple here. You see? Because Elohim do not want to worship a temple. He wants to worship to him. And to worship Elohim is to walk in the Torah, in spirit and in truth. So the temple was, the destruction of the temple by Titus was the result of the rebellion against Elohim. And if you go into the book of Josephus Flavius, I don't have the book number now, but during the destruction of the temple, Titus raised his hands up to heaven and say, "It's not me, it is you, God, who ordered this." You see, Titus rejected the massacre when he saw all the dead body from the Jew. He rejected the fault not unto himself, but unto the will of God, Elohim. So, and this goes on up to 135 with the Bar Kokhba revolt under Adrian, when the Jews were banned from Jerusalem. No more the right to enter Jerusalem was totally forbidden. No more religion. The scripture, or when they found scripture, were burned. And this is after that which led the last Sanhedrin under the pressure of the Roman, which keep going until 335 and the Constantine, to change the calendar by Hillel II under the last Sanhedrin, to make the calendar we have today, which has nothing to do with the calendar we have in the first century with Yeshua. You see, all this must need to be taken in context. So if we look at this, as we have seen in the book of Daniel in the last chapter, which is that everything is sealed until the end. So there is something which is revealed, and is something which is not revealed, which will be revealed to some at the end of the day, at the last hours, when things are close to come to pass. What does he bring to somebody to know that 2,000 years ago? He does bring nothing. Yes, he will take the hope. But when we are close to the end, then revelation will have an impact in our life to understand the things.
The book of Revelation, you mean?
No, the book of Revelation. As I say, we can go back to the book of Revelation to see that major part of the book of Revelation, according to my own understanding, is already past. This does not mean that a similar scenario will come to pass at the end of the days, before the second advent of our Master Yeshua, because the prophets speak about that. This is a different scenario, because this is a time of the judgment of the nations. Okay? So, we know that now we are living this time, and I believe that there will be a great tribulation, but different from the one we saw in the first century and the fourth century, or the second century and the fourth century, until the Jews were totally rejected from Jerusalem. The name of Jerusalem was changed into Aelia Capolina, and the land was no more called by Canaan, the land of Canaan. It was called after the name of the Philistine, Palestina today.
C'est vrai?
Yeah, by Adrian. Okay. So we see that if it is not a spiritual aspect to it, that Elohim do not want anymore this land to be called by the name Jerusalem and by the name the land of Canaan, then there is no prophecy. So after that, the land will undergo a process of sleeping until the time of the nation has come in, like Paul said. The time of the Gentiles are not pagans like many believe. These Gentiles are those from Ephraim, the Melo HaGoim. So when this fullness of the Goim will have come into the covenant, we be grafted back to the olive tree, then the end will come. So that is the timing. That is the timing. Otherwise, it is an interpretation, man's-made interpretation. And the more we will dig into it, the more we will confirm that.
Yeah.